Dr. Brooks, how can countries use agricultural policies effectively in their poverty reduction strategies?
Well, we think that it's important for agricultural policies to be situated in an overall economic context, that there are many things that governments can do to reduce poverty, and we shouldn't view agriculture in isolation, but we should situate it among broader investments in health, education, institutions, and so forth that can help reduce poverty. There's a role for specific investments in areas where agriculture has historically been neglected. So there are important things that governments can do in, for example, in improving agricultural research and making sure that the benefits of that research extend to farmers, and also in investing in rural infrastructure and helping farmers get their products to markets. But finally, I think we do need to recognise that it's not just about agriculture, and as well as creating opportunities for farmers within agriculture, we also need to acknowledge that ultimately many of them will have better opportunities outside the sector. So we have to create better opportunities outside as well as within agriculture.
And market interventions are often controversial in agriculture, but input subsidies have become increasingly popular. What are the potential positive and negative aspects of these input subsidies?
Input subsidies are a seductive proposition because they can, if you increase the use of inputs, that can increase outputs, it can raise incomes, and the argument is that countries can get out of poverty traps by using input subsidies. But we would see that really they effectively treat the symptoms of low incomes rather than the causes, and that it would be better to address those underlying symptoms. If it's too expensive for farmers to get their products to market, invest in the markets. If if there's no credit available to the farmers, it's better to fix that problem than to focus, ideally, than to focus on the input problem. The other problem is, the big problem with input subsidies is that they can rapidly become captured by vested interests, and the benefits don't necessarily occur to the farmers, and then once they're in place they can become extremely costly and very difficult to remove. And so we see in some countries that the cost of the programme can run up to 15 or 20% of all government expenditures. Now that's at the expense of spending on important things such as health, education and other things that are known to be effective. So we can see the attraction, but it's quite a potentially quite dangerous instrument, although at small amounts, if it's about communicating the benefits of technologies and communicating what farmers can achieve with new technologies, if that requires a small subsidy, then that might make a lot of sense.
And you concluded by saying that the best practice principles for agricultural policy in OECD countries are also valid for poorer countries. How can poor countries make steps towards adopting these policies?
Well, many of the policies that are required are effectively the same. We would say that the main role for government is not in intervening in markets, but it's to protect incomes through social policies, and then to help raise incomes by investments that can raise productivity and improve competitiveness. And so many of those investments are valid for rich and poor countries alike. We do acknowledge that there are some differences which mean that some of the instruments that we would advise for use in high-income countries may be more difficult to implement in lower-income countries, and that's why we've seen recourse to measures such as input subsidies, and we've also seen governments moving to stabilise prices. But we would say if you're going to do those because you feel that they're the only lever that you've got, then make sure that your spending on that doesn't crowd out the essential investments that can help you move towards policies that are likely to be more effective in the long term.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thanks.